Hey everybody, I just wanted to create a testimonial or a personal account of how Jesus has transformed my life and how I've been pursued all this time. My hope is that it can, just give you a bit of an insight into my journey with faith, and it may inspire you as well. And my testimonial is a bit different because I didn't have one of those born again experiences where you're baptized and then all addictions have been stripped off, and that's been left with the old self, and all mental health has been cleared away and completely resurrected. Like, I've had a bit of a different journey of transformation, but it has been transforming for me, and I wanted to share about it with you. So to start off with Christianity itself, growing up, I always thought that Christians were delusional and that they just didn't know what the real world was like, because the real world that we live in is full of torment and pain and hardship. And if you walk around being a happy clapper and smiling and sharing love so joyously like Christians do, and love so unconditionally, I just thought they were just like a little bit crazy, a bit loopy. I took it upon myself to try and corrupt innocence throughout my life by trying to manipulate people, particularly people that were actually walking in the light of Jesus and Christ-like people. I wanted to kind of ruin that for them, because I thought that if that happened, then they're going to see the light. They're going to see the light of the world, because the world sucks. Oh, that's hilarious. Throughout my journey and the way I'd been, my old self had been conditioned through childhood, it was all about being in control, being perfect, and having power over other people, because I felt powerless. I felt empty. I felt alone most of the time, to the point where when I was in my early 20s, I was terrified when there was no one in the house, and I couldn't explain that. It was like this big gaping hole in my heart and my chest. I just felt so empty, and I was terrified. And what else was going on inside me is a lot of hatred, a lot of this like internal critic stuff going on in my head. I used to always just think I was worthless and not good enough, and that I had to strive and I had to fight really hard. And at times I didn't want to live. I felt like I just didn't want to be here on earth. And there was a lot of negative stuff that was spoken over me as a child, because I did grow up in a household that was emotionally charged. There was a lot of negativity around, and some of the things that were spoken over me led me to believe that I wasn't good enough and that I wasn't worthy, and the only way that I was going to get love was to be a people pleaser, was to manipulate other people into seeing me a certain way. And I took all that stuff that I learned in childhood all the way through into adult life and just bounced through different relationships and friendships where I would paint a picture for people of me being this really optimistic person. And I am an optimistic person at heart. And I do like to joke and smile and all that. The only thing was there was this big gaping hole which no one saw when I would go home and when I wasn't around people. I was very good at masking that. Yeah, and when I started getting into relationships, it was I wasn't being me. I was being a version of how I wanted them to see me. And so I wanted them to see me as like being a happy person and very emotionally intelligent, discerning, understanding, great listener. I was a terrible listener, to be honest. A lot of the time, I was waiting until I got to say something about me. It was all about the self. It was all about me. Anyway, like yeah, I tried to find ways to like self-soothe, just that feeling of emptiness and that feeling of lack in my life. And I discovered porn in the early years, porn, food, sports, and a lot of fantasizing about the person that I was going to be and the future that I was going to have. I wasn't even in the present most of the time. I was just projecting myself into the future of this amazing person, which I am, in the eyes of Jesus and my heavenly Father. But yeah, there was drugs, there was alcohol. I even went through a period where I felt so prideful and awesome that I was peddling drugs around the university where I was studying, and it gave me this sense of like a sense of importance in society. And I used to have this outlandish belief that everyone should smoke marijuana because a friend with weed is better. And if they don't understand what it's like, then I don't really want to be in your company because we're just not on the same wavelength, man. You know. Yeah, when I got into my late 20s, I wanted to be a better person. I completed my master's of counseling. I didn't even have one personal counseling session, and I did a master of counseling. And then, anyway, I came over here to Australia, and I was, yeah, I wasn't in a very good headspace because it was just change, and I'm the sort of person, I'm not very good with change. Well, back then I couldn't handle change because I needed to be in control, and so yeah, I needed to do something about that. So I went down this path of exploring, power of the mind, trauma work, psychotherapies, books on relationships. I just wanted to fix relationships that I was in that weren't going well. Um, oh yeah, how to get women, um, which was terrible. If you've heard of the game, I got involved in men's workshops, groups, and gatherings. Like, I was really big on that. I was like addicted to personal development. My early 30s, I started to have uh, I had a spiritual awakening, but we'll call it like my wokeness journey. And then when I came into that wokeness journey, oh wow, did my ego start to inflate more because I thought because I was having spiritual experiences that I was even bigger and better than everyone else because here I am like my brain's full of all this knowledge and wisdom around how to relate to people, how to do relationships, and how to read people, how to manipulate people more than anything, to going down the spiritual path, the quantum field, the divine masculine meditation activations, twin flames. Uh, I'm just getting the words wrong here, but you kind of get the gist. Oh yeah, I was praying to various spiritual entities, which I won't name or put any light to. Saw mediums, tarot readers, had my own tarot deck. I was hooked on watching tarot online, sage. I was just saging myself, just cleansing my energy all the time. I had a bunch of crystals. I didn't even know what the crystals were for, but hey, I was on my wokeness journey, so yeah, let's just get crystals everywhere. Um, yeah, Worshipping the full moon when it came up, and freaking out every time Mercury in retrograde would come or Lion's Gate would come. I gotta do some things to clear out the junk. Um, Reiki, channeled messages. Oh, and always looking for a guru. Like, I guess because of when I was a child, like my mum and my dad, they split up when I was like 4 to 5 years old, and I just wanted my dad. And so I worshipped him. I worshipped my dad. I put him up there with God, and when they split up, like that's all I yearned for was my dad. And so I kept covering that with other relationships where I would pedestal people, and particularly romantic relationships. I would pedestal the my partner, and there was some things that went on that I just couldn't explain as part of the my wokeness journey and having the spiritual awakening, because there were spirits that would show up, and I'd physically woken up some nights like feeling a hand around my neck and being choked, and it freaked me out, and it just kept happening, and I just felt helpless, even with all these different, meditations and different, you know, things to cleanse my aura and my field and my home. It didn't do anything. It just kept happening. I was like experiencing what people call spiritual attack. So when when did I come to the end of myself and really give my life to Jesus? Okay, so my ex was living with me. I was being manipulative. I didn't like that I couldn't speak my truth around her, because I was, yeah, very hooked on having her attention, gaining her validation. I was, I wanted to be close with her physically and intimately, sexually. And our connection was very volatile. And yes, it was domestically violent as well. And I remember the day that at 2 a.m. in the morning, I left my place and slept in my car because things got really heightened. Um, I communicated that I wanted to hurt her. I don't, I'd like to believe that I wouldn't have gone there, but I really felt like I wanted to, and so I had to leave. And then I remember in my car at 2 a.m. in the morning, just beside myself, and something just dropped into my heart that it's never going to be the same. This is like the end of the road. Anyway, I needed somewhere to stay, and I asked around, and my friends, I had a couple of friends take me in for like a couple of nights, and then I went to my other mate, who, yeah, they've a married couple with a 2 year old and a 12-year old at the time, and they put me up in their garage, and he just said, "You stay for as long as you need." And during that time, I was there for 76 days, sleeping in a garage, and every night just lying there on the bed, just looking up and just thinking, how did this even happen in my life? At that time, by that point, I'd already been baptized, and I was like, why is this happening to me? Like, shouldn't things just be so great? But I stepped out. When I got baptized, I came back up. I thought things were going to be great. And I just continued to stay on the same path. And I had my ex girlfriend living with me. And I was like, life shouldn't be like this. And it was just horrible. Um, so I was laying there every night in winter, freezing cold. Like, I appreciated and I felt so blessed that my friends were just there for me. And I just remember lying there at night, and I could see the stars like out through the window of the garage that I was sleeping in. And I'd just see the stars, and I'd just be praying to God, please, like, I want to go home. And whatever you need to do to work in my life, I just surrender to that. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Um, anyway, I reached that point, and the next day, I just told my friends like what happened, because I didn't tell them that the way I was behaving, and that I was still living in a sinful life. Like, I was still, and getting sexually intimate with my ex girlfriend, living with me, and I was just so full of shame, um, because I felt like I needed to paint a certain picture to my other Christian friends. And what was funny is I could share all the other stuff that I was doing that is actual sin, having sex outside of wedlock, um, the language that I was using and the things I'd talk about, then the new age stuff. I was still involved in, you know, um, using crystals and sage and activations, and I was doing that the whole time, and I kept it really quiet, and I was terrified to be open about it. Anyway, like, I ended up sharing that with my friends, and from that night where I actually just said, I can't do this anymore, I need you, God, in my life, and that's when, like, there was this renewal process started to happen for me, and they were just totally open and loving towards me. Like, that's when I really felt like God's love, like, just flowing through them and that relationship with them. And it was really healing for me, because what I had learned growing up around love itself and the condition of love is that you have to earn it, and you have to do things to impress upon people to love you and to accept you, or to accept me. And it was just so profound, and I'd never been in a position to be receiving love unconditionally, and it just changed everything for me, like that itself. And yeah, and I know why I used to be so resistant to Christians that wanted to share the love of Jesus, because I was on the opposite end of the scale, where that I just had this big wall, and I didn't want to let it in, because it's pretty humbling. It's so humbling to just accept God's love. And it's really interesting that out of all the self-help stuff that I did, and all this new agey stuff that I got involved in, not once did I want to look at a Bible, or at the Bible. And it was like, I believe that there's a spirit there, that was telling me to stay away from it, to stay away from um, the love of God that was in, particularly the red letters of what Jesus was saying, um, and about how he loves us, and he loved us first before we loved him. And yeah, I gave into that. And here I am right now. There's been so many experiences like since then, like where God's provided for me in my life, and a lot of this testimonial is based around relationships, because one really big thing that's happened for me, and this is so recent, is that I reconnected with my dad after over 2 years not being in contact with him. I won't go into the details of it, but I can hand on my heart say that if it weren't for the love of Jesus and the transformation like in my heart and the renewal of my mind as well, I wouldn't have reconnected with him. And I thank Jesus for that I was able um, to open up my heart and to reach out to him after 2 years of not being in contact. And yeah, and we reconciled, and he was here recently in Australia. And this evening at a prayer group, I stood up and got really vulnerable and prayed for my dad in front of the group. And I was pretty scared of actually doing that and praying for him. But I was called to do that and encouraged to do that, to just keep believing that Jesus transforms and he heals and God forgives, and that freedom from all the stuff that I'd been bound down by can be gone just like that. And that's just by letting God in. But I know that I fought really hard against that, because even though I got baptized, I'm still in the flesh. I'm still in this body, and I still have this brain, and I still have neural pathways in my brain of trauma and conditioning and whatnot. But I didn't lay it all down. I didn't lay it all down for God and say, transform me, Lord, like just work on my heart. I give my heart to you. And ever since I've done that, like it's just been a really amazing flow. And knowing that I don't have to go through life on autopilot, that I can bring Jesus into every situation. Like I can even bring him into my finances. And when this whole COVID madness and the mandates were happening here, and I think they're still happening, I resigned from a position because I had total faith in God that he was going to provide for me. I got to a point where I had to borrow money off friends to pay for rent and for food. And I was on the verge of, basically becoming homeless again. But God provided for me, and I'm now in a position where I'm working less hours and making 50% more than what I was doing. I absolutely loved my job, but I had to be faithful. The abundance just flooded in, and like everything that I had lost financially came back so quickly. And that's only because I spent that time with God and prayed and had some words of knowledge come through on what I needed to do next. And that was really powerful for me. But yeah, like I hope that this testimonial's been helpful and inspiring. And I'm open to talk to other people around it, because this is a different testimonial. It's not one where, like I said, that someone was just instantly healed from addictions. Like this has been a real journey of faith, a real journey of just laying it down and just making a choice to do that. It's just been victory from victory to victory. That's how I'm seeing it, because each time I go through a different trial, when I experience these emotions of sadness or anxiety, like I just give it to God every time. And yeah, my body may release some emotions and I'll cry, but I don't feel that emptiness anymore. Like the emptiness isn't there. Like I just know, it's like His love, His Holy Spirit is just housed in me. Like I have Jesus in me. That power, the resurrection power of Jesus is in me, and all things through Christ. Like I can get through anything in this life, and I'm not afraid anymore.